one last principle and then a question that often comes up at this point. The principle is what I tend to call all skate. So let me tell you a little story. When I was in middle school, the thing to do was to go to the roller skate rink. Now, I was not much of a skater, but everyone was there, so I went there too. And I remember that the DJ, the announcer, would call out things like, "It's now couples skate time." And so if you had a date, you were encouraged to go out on the skate floor and skate romantically, whatever that means. I was typically not with a date, so I'd be sitting on the carpet during that phase. The DJ then might say something like, "It's time for the hokey pokey." And so you could come out to the middle of the floor and do a little dance. And frankly, you had to have a certain kind of skill level in order to do the hokey pokey on roller skates. So again, I was usually sitting on the carpet. But then the announcer would say, "It's all skate." And what that meant was that everyone in the whole place was invited to skate. You didn't have to have a date. You didn't have to have any particular skill level. You just needed skates on your feet. Everyone was invited to participate. And when I think of practice and feedback, I think of this all skate metaphor. That ideally what we want is all of our students getting a chance to practice and getting feedback. And so as you think about some of the examples that I've shared here, whether it's the clicker questions or the doodles or the Twitter example or peer instruction, the idea is to invite all students to practice what they're learning and to get feedback. Now, the question that I usually get at this point when I talk with faculty about these ideas is the question of really coverage is what it comes down to. How do you make time in a semester, particularly for in-class practice and feedback, right? This is time-consuming stuff. So how do you kind of fit that in a course? This can be particularly challenging in science courses that are sequenced. So there's a certain amount of material you need to cover in Chem 101 to prepare students for Chem 102, so you don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of time. Or if you're preparing students for external exams, like nursing exams, often there's certain stuff that you have to cover. And so if there's all this material to cover, how do you have time for the kind of active learning that we're talking about in class, providing students opportunities for practice and feedback? This is a tough question, right? In some classes, there's just not a lot of time for this. But I would argue that just because you're covering something doesn't mean that the students are learning it, right? You might get through a lot of material in Chem 101, but if students can't do anything with that, then it doesn't really help them that much in Chem 102 anyway. Now, when I talk to instructors about dealing with this challenge, there's a couple of kind of strategies or ways they think about it. One is that if you spend time early in the course with lots of practice and feedback, so that students are really learning that foundational material well, then later in the course they can actually move more quickly through the material because they've got the foundation solid. Another approach is to focus class time on the really hard stuff on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis and trust the students to figure out the easier stuff outside of class, either before class or after class, depending on how you structure things. Either way, I think instructors who are thinking along those lines are typically cognizant that you have a relatively limited amount of class time with students. A time and space where you're all there together. All the students are there, you're there. Again, students can do a lot of practice outside of class, and sometimes they can get a little bit of feedback outside of class, but the quality of feedback that they're going to receive in class is typically much higher because there's lots more people there who can help provide it. Peers, you. And so thinking about how to make use of the relatively limited class time that you have to give students the kind of practice and feedback that will really help them understand the material, that's taking advantage of class time really effectively. And often, I think, spending class time on practice and feedback and these active learning techniques end up preparing the students better for what follows than covering a lot of material.